Hi there, I'm Pradeep. A topic which can be useful if you're running an open source project or if you are in developer relations. This might serve as lessons that I have learned, how you can utilize them in your work. So last year and in my recent projects, I have fair amount of success in growing those open source projects. And what did I learn from these projects? That's what I'm going to share in this talk. So engaging more developers with your open source project, that's the topic that I'm going to talk about. Quickly about me, I am Pradeep. I come from India and I have more than 10 plus years of experience as a developer, founder, and devrel. So let's talk about what's not a problem today. Open source has clearly won, as Jim Gemlin said in his recent talk, that 80 to 90% of modern code base is open source. It is either a library that you use or the framework, but mostly the organizations are writing only 10% of the code base on their own. Apart from that, open source is a big part of your code base. New open source projects are also coming at a god speed. There are more than 43 million public GitHub repositories as we talk. And out of those, 12 million were created this year itself in 2022, which is 27% of total. Huge. This is massive. So many open source contributions, so many open source projects. It seems like starting open source project is easy. If you have some expertise, some skills, build a useful software, check, make it open source, check, engage some early users, check. Fairly easy. The question where you might need to think a lot more is, how do I engage more users? After that initial engagement, how do I go about engaging more developers and make this a meaningfully big project? And I want to prove this to you. So I tried to get some data from GitHub, and this is what I got. There are 12 million repositories that were published this year. Out of those, only 70,000 have more than 10 GitHub stars. So here I'm taking GitHub stars as a proxy of how many developers are engaging with the open source projects. So more than 10 stars, 70,000. Just 1/10 of these people projects, around 7,000 projects have only 100 stars. And when we talk about more than 1,000 stars, only 500 repositories have that. And more than 5,000, only 55, and more than 10,000, something that you wish your project will achieve, or if it has achieved, congratulations. Then you are one of among 15 projects that achieved this feat this year. Okay, that's interesting data, and you'll see that that's an exponential curve. So you see there are lots of projects with just an initial level of engagement, like with 100 plus stars, 100 plus developers. But when you go down to projects which have more than 500 stars, they are quite few. And that's what you saw. The key thing that I learned, or I have seen in my experience, is that these days initial engagement on open source project is easy, but after that nothing happens. And that's the problem that we want to solve. So of course, product is definitely a key part in solving that. But today we are going to talk about the developer relations perspective. And one point that I want to make you note of is that you should not be undermining any of this, either product or devrel. Both are equally important, and especially devrel, because that's what I see that many new open source projects are not paying that much attention to. You need to be intentional if you want to grow your open source project. The question is it possible to do this when you have seen stagnant growth, the project having initial engagement, but nothing after that. Can you actually solve this? And has anyone solved this? So that's what I'm telling you from my experience. I have done that, and in my recent experience, I'm sharing my recent experience where I was working on this project where I joined when it had about 2000 stars, and within just 6 months of span of time, we beat the competitor. We grew like 5x from 2000 to we went to 10,000 and 10,000 stars, and raised massive funding, which this is for a project which was stagnant, which was not creating enough interest in developers community. The investors were not calling back. Within just 6 months of time, everything changed. And this was 1.5 years old project already. So this is what was possible. The red one, if you haven't guessed it, the red one is the project which I'm talking about. This is a plot of GitHub stars, and this is the competitors' GitHub stars graph. So, okay, rose like a phoenix. How did I do this, or what did I learn? So I want to share my top 5 lessons from this experience. I believe these are the top 5 because when I look back and when I see that other projects that I have succeed in this kind of effort to grow, effort to engage more developers. And the number 1 out of those 5 is focusing on one metric. So if you are not watching any of this presentation, then I'm just picking one learning, then that will be to make a decision to focus on one metric. Harder than speaking is easier than done. So solve one problem at a time. You will have to solve the other problem. The example that I want to share is the same project I was talking about. We chose number of GitHub stars as a metric. The goal was to break out of stagnant growth period and to build better public and investors' perception about the project's growth. And that's why we decided to pick number of GitHub stars as a metric, and we set a milestone that we will aim for 5,000 GitHub stars mark within next 2 quarters. Why did we pick this metric? Why not other metrics such as repo traffic, how many unique visitors are visiting this repository, how many new Slack or Discord community members are joining, or the social channel followers, comments, or folks, or other stuff. I will come to that, but before that I want to have a warning that what kind of metric you should not be picking, or I will definitely be aware if I am trying to choose these 2 metric. One is the Docker pool. In my experience, I have seen this is quite inaccurate, and the inaccuracy is increased because of the fact that testing tools of different CI/CD tools use Docker for different DevOps purposes, and which is why you see this bump in the number, which is not reflecting actual users, rather just these DevOps activities. So I wouldn't choose that as a metric ever. And also, when you analyze all sorts of metric that you can have, you tend to think, how can I make it better? How can I make it more accurate? And this is the kind of other extreme when I was talking about Docker pool. And this is the other extreme, telemetry. You set up your own telemetry to get data from your project, from your open source project, which I think you can do, but I'm just telling you to be aware that first, telemetry is a sensitive topic. Not many developers love that, and getting it right is quite hard. So you need to make sure that you respect the privacy of your target developer audience. And also, you will see that when you make it an opt-in telemetry, which you should, you don't have enough developers opting in. So you need to be clever, or you need to be smart in your communication when you talk about telemetry. So creating that transparency, that page for your developer audience to use telemetry, that is going to be key when you use that. But if you can do this, I think this you can drive very accurate and timely metric with telemetry. Okay, so having covered that, and you can use, okay, if you want to use it, there are some open source tool for telemetry as well. You can use them, and I would definitely recommend over the closed source solutions. Now, how do you choose the right metric out of these many metrics? Number one is definitely alignment. Whatever goals that you have, does this metric align with that? So I would say start from there, write down your goals, think about the different metrics, make a list. Let's say these are 5 or 10 metric that kind of align with your goals. Then filter out the metric which is one simple to understand. Can you explain this easily to your team members, to other stakeholders? And then they can also talk about the same metric with others. The more they can talk with others without being too much technical, I think that is a great metric. And second check that you need to do is it easy to track? Yes, of course, you can come up with a very smart and clever metric which will be perfectly aligned with your goals. But if it is not easy to track, you need to deploy a lot of engineering efforts, lots of analysis, and all this data scientists. I think it's not worth it. Keep it simple, keep it and choose the one which is easy to track. And I think these are the simple things that I will do to choose the right metrics. In the end, it is an art, not a science. And with experience, you get better at picking the right metric. So this brings closer to my first point, that pick one metric only. Second point that I want to make sure that you do if you want to grow your projects, engage more developers, simplify the communication. How do you communicate with your developer audience, whether within the community or outside the community? You need to do this, but it becomes super critical to do this when your project is new. Not many developers know about it already. There is no references or recommendations in place which recommend your software. Then you need to pay extra attention to your communication. I want to showcase an example. So there was this project I shared. So I shared about it. So this was the description: multimodal search powered by deep learning, a demo and guide. This was my kind of first post probably about that project, and in an external community and on this programming subreddit. And you can see no engagement, nothing, absolutely zero engagement. And actually, I think it's true. I wouldn't engage with this either. And it's not simple, it's complex, it's not interesting. And after some time, after following the process that I have, I came up with this open source project to build your own AI powered search with just 7 lines of code. That's interesting, that's simple to understand. And you can see the change. It has huge quotes, it has a good number of comments, and lots of awards from the community as well. So people are understanding it. So this is the kind of change that you will see when you simplify your communication. But how can you make it simple and interesting? So I have a couple of pointers on that. I'll quickly go over them. And if you have any more questions, which I'm sure you will, you can ask on the Twitter handle that I shared, Pradeep_IU. Now, what are these? How do you make it simple and interesting? First thing I do is I start with questions that people are already asking. I go to these online forums, Stack Overflow, Reddit, or any other forum that is relevant for that project. I see that what problems people are already having in my domain, what questions do they ask, and what kind of like questions, how to do this, how to fix this, how to create this next thing. All of this related to my project's domain only. So what are they actually asking, and I try to answer those questions and have that conversation. And this experience gives me not only empathy for for the users in that period when they have this problem which my project solves, but I also learn the keywords they use, the style they use to narrate their problems, to just specify some things. So what are those keywords? And I also specifically talk to some of the existing users of the project and see how they actually communicate their problem, communicate what this project is. And all of this gives me a lot more conviction on what keyword should I be using, how should I be forming my sentence, how should I be pitching this project to the developer audience. And then I experiment. I try out different variations and then listen to the audience, listen what they talk about, in what language. Again, the same things repeat. And that gives me a good idea how to simplify, and eventually it ends up with multiple communications that I can use to engage my audience. And one thing I want to highlight here is that you will see that sometimes you need to you should be trying some bold experiments. So it's just a quick call that be bold in experimenting with new angles and keep experimenting. It's not a job done if you figured out, okay, this is working and then your job is done. No, you need to constantly evolve yourself because people are moving ahead, they are figuring out new stuff, they are learning new things. And so you need to also upgrade your communication along with the time. And another important point I want to bring here is that a mistake, which is that some people, the open source author or the devrel person, mixing business pitch with the pitch that is for developers. These are two different audiences, two different people with different aspirations, lifestyle, challenges. So pitch can't be same. It has to be different. So when you are pitching to developers, think from scratch. How should you be doing that? Not don't just reuse the business pitch. Okay, so we are running out of time, so I will quickly try to wrap up these 3 more points that I have. So third important thing to do in order to engage more developers is to engage with developers wherever they are. Just go there. Don't wait for them to come to your community. Go to their community, talk about your project, talk related to your domain, or whatever way that you can think outside the box to engage them. Do that and bring out your creativity and where you can reach them out. Don't just go with the traditional method. For example, I share that this was a community called Data is Beautiful, where people come for where sharing beautiful representation of some information in the form of charts, graphs, all these forms. So I shared there about this Python project which was on deep learning. So you don't see how this relates, but and many people are actually not a target audience in that community, but there are significant number of people, and you can see that this post drives kind of viral engagement, 15,000 upvotes, and more than 200 comments. So think outside the box. Where can you reach them out? Where are they going? A developer is also a human being. They have different interests, different aspirations, and so it's not a fixed place that you will find them on only on Stack Overflow or only on Reddit, or there are multiple places they are going. So you need to think creatively that where they might be going, where you can engage them. If you want me to engage me, talk to me about chess, talk to me in the community, chess community where I'm a part of, and I'll remember you for a longer period of time. So engage with, have conversations with developers outside your community. Go talk in external communities on HN, on Hacker News, on Reddit or meetups, wherever you can. And just a couple of points to remember: understand first, and then try to be understood. First, understand the community, the kind of posts that are working there, kind of people are there, when do they engage, and so many other things. And then try to engage. Only then you will have a good outcome. Otherwise, you will have wasted your time. And do not spam. And as a rule, I always make sure that no one from my team engages in a community where I am already engaging. So we don't want to spam that. We don't want to collaborate and do bombarding of posts or just faking something. No. You have to be very authentic and be yourself and represent yourself, not your organization or team. And that's what I have seen that works well. And this will give you learning. This engagement will give you learning about how you can further make your project better. And the fourth point I want to bring is to obsess with transparency. Be transparent, ask for help. And more than I wish, I see that it is kind of a common false belief that people think that in order to build your authority or brand, you need to present yourself as someone knowledgeable and do not expose your vulnerability and do not ask for help. So that's what you should not be doing, in my opinion. And there are examples like someone June bombed our meeting and the team didn't want to share that with other externally, but I did share that and that worked out very well. We got huge support because of that. So share the bad news as well. It's transparency is not about sharing all the good news only. This vulnerability builds emotional connection with your developer audience. And why would someone help if you don't need help? Okay, scaling developer education with content. Now you have some more engagement, but how do you scale it to a massive scale? And that's where content comes. And one example is simply I did one thing. I wrote one blog post and created one video. Result, more than 70% of this Google search page for the keyword that we wanted is from our project's post. And also Google suggests as an autocomplete, suggest the project as an autocomplete for the category that we wanted to lead in. So the content is answer to your question of scale. So how do you do this? Quick things, 3 things. Just number 1, pick the category. Pick the developer category that you want to lead in. Not number 2, number 3, the number 1 that you want to be in that category. So you need to really think hard and experiment. What kind of niche or how broad you should go. Second is, once you have picked that category, educate your target audience about that category. Forget about your project target, educate about this category. And once you have done that, you can retarget that audience and educate them about your open source project. So this is all that I have for this talk. So I just want to share this. You can take a screenshot, maybe click a picture of this. This is the summary of this talk.